A year I was diagnosed with severe clinical depression. I became the family's most fragile treasure. All the sharp objects in the house were confiscated. The windows were welded shut. My parents took turns watching me, a 24-hour vigil against the slightest flicker of self-harm in my eyes. To manage my fragile emotions, they even forced my brother Sam, who had just gotten into a top university, to defer for a year and come home to help. Until the day of Sam's wedding, the house was a kaleidoscope of festive lights and joyful noise. I looked at the sea of smiling guests and felt the air grow thin, my lungs tightening. I whispered without thinking, "Mom, I feel overwhelmed. I need to go to my room." My mother's beaming smile vanished, placed by a terrifying snarl. She grabbed a fruit knife from a platter on the table and shoved it into my hand. "Overwhelmed? If you're so overwhelmed, then just die. This is your brother's big day. Do you have to ruin it? Do you have to be the black cloud over everything here?" She gripped my hand, forcing the blade hard against the skin of my neck. "Cut yourself right here. Stop just talking about how you don't want to live anymore." Then, with a final shove of disgust, she turned her back on me to raise a toast with her new daughter-in-law. I looked down at the knife in my hand, and finally I smiled. The cold of the metal seeped into my palm. It was the first time in 3 years I had touched anything so sharp. It had been so long. For 3 years, my world had been a world of dull edges. I could only eat with rounded spoons. When my nails grew long, my mother would personally file them down bit by bit. Even when I showered, the bathroom door had to remain open, so they could check on me at any moment. And now this knife. My mother had placed it in my hand herself. The room was filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. No one was looking at me. I stared at the knife. I should put it back on the fruit platter and pretend none of this happened. My hand lifted slightly, then froze in midair. I could hear my brother Sam's cheerful laugh from the doorway. He was toasting guests full of life and promise. He'd taken a year off school, a year from the prime of his life, to watch over the crazy sister, now finally married and starting his own family. He could be free of this burden, free of me. Looking at all the joy in this room, I suddenly felt so healthy. I was the only stain on this perfect picture. My presence here made the very air feel thick and suffocating. My mother was right. I shouldn't have an episode today. I shouldn't be the black cloud. I shouldn't be alive. My fingers tightened around the handle. I turned and walked toward my bedroom. I moved slowly. No one noticed. They were all drowning in the happiness of the wedding. Who would pay attention to the comings and goings of a mental patient? I entered my room and gently closed the door. The noise from outside was instantly silenced. I leaned against the padded wall, my body sliding down until I was sitting on the thick carpet. I raised the knife and held it to my throat. My hand was shaking violently, not from fear, but from excitement. It was a physiological euphoria, the thrill of a prisoner, about to break their chains and find ultimate freedom. Over the past 3 years, I had imagined my death countless times. I thought about drowning, about hanging, about swallowing pills. But every attempt was discovered, followed by even stricter surveillance, by more hysterical crying. "Annie, what do you want from us? Are you trying to kill your mother? Annie, we gave up everything for you. Your life isn't your own. It belongs to this family. How can you be so selfish? Cease. I'm begging you. Just be okay, please. Mom and Dad are getting old. They can't take this. Today I would finally be free. Mom, you told me to die. You handed me the knife yourself. I'll be a good girl. I'll listen." The sharp edge kissed my skin. My wrist jerked with force. A wet tearing sound, then a gush of warmth. I opened my eyes. Blood splattered across the wall and floor, like crimson flowers bursting into bloom. So beautiful. My strength drained away with my blood. I collapsed onto the floor, curling into a ball. So cold. So this is what dying felt like. I looked at my blood-soaked hands and managed to pull the corners of my mouth into a smile. My brother's wedding I celebrated with my life. The dad. I owe my parents for raising me. I repay it with my death. From now on, you won't have to take turns watching over me. You won't have to live in constant fear. You won't have to feel ashamed in front of our relatives. I won't be crushed by the weight of my medical bills. You are free and I am free, too. My consciousness began to blur. The laughter from outside sounded distant and muffled. To the happy couple, may you have a long life together and beautiful children. Cheers so lively. At the very end, I thought I heard my mother's laugh. It was a sound I hadn't heard in a long time, a laugh that came from the heart. I was dead, but it seemed I wasn't entirely gone. My body felt weightless, hovering in midair. I looked down at the crumpled form in the corner. Blood was still seeping out ever so slowly, soaking the carpet in a wide, Dark stain. This was a wool rug. It would be impossible to clean. Mom was obsessed with cleanliness. This would drive her insane. I tried to crouch down and wipe it, but my hand passed straight through the floor. I couldn't touch anything. I stood awkwardly beside my own corpse. After a while, I heard footsteps outside the door. My father's voice, brimming with unconcealed joy, drifted in from the living room. What a perfect day. Just perfect. Everyone was saying how graceful and lovely Grace is. Family really looked good today. My mother's voice was hoarse, but laced with excitement. Of course I picked her, didn't I? All right, let's open these gift envelopes and tally up the cash. I floated out of the room and into the living room. The floor was littered with discarded candy wrappers and nutshells. The table was piled high with red envelopes of cash, gifts. My father, mother, brother, and his new wife, Grace, were all sitting around the sofa. Their faces were tired, but glowing with satisfaction. It had been so long since I'd seen a scene of such warmth. In this house. Ever since I got sick. The atmosphere had been perpetually heavy. When I was around, they didn't dare speak loudly. They didn't dare laugh. Her eyes were always on me, cautious and wary. To see them like this, so carefree and happy, it was good. Hey, where's Annie? Grace. My sister-in-law suddenly looked around. I haven't seen her since the toasts. Is she still in her room? The air froze for a second. The smile on my mother's face stiffened. Then she scoffed, don't worry about her. She's in her room, playing dead. On a perfect day, like today. She just had to throw a fit. She even threatened me with a knife earlier, going on about how she didn't want to live. A knife. Grace looked startled. I thought there weren't any knives in the house. I gave it to her. My mother slammed an envelope down on the table. I just couldn't take it anymore. She threatens to kill herself every single day. So I gave her the knife. I wanted to see if she had the guts to do it. And what happened? She scurried back to her room to hide. The little coward. I floated in front of my mother, looking at her agitated face, wanting to scream at her, Mom. I wasn't hiding. I did have the guts. I'm already dead. But when I opened my mouth, the sound was like a whisper of wind vanishing into the air. Mom, maybe we should check on her, Grace said, her voice laced with concern. She stood up and glanced toward my room. Annie hasn't been well for years. What if? What if? What if? There is no what if. My mother grabbed Grace's arm, her tone harsh. Grace, you're new here. You don't understand. She's spoiled. It's all for show. A performance. The more attention you give her, the worse she gets. Trust me, just ignore her. My father lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and exhaled a cloud of smoke. That girl, Annie, she's just so selfish. Only ever thinks about her own suffering. Never considers the family. Sam's wedding the happiest day. And she has to make trouble. Because of her, we haven't had a single peaceful day in years. Tonight, let her stay in there and think about what she's done. I stared at my father in disbelief. He used to dote on me when I was little and scrape my knee falling off my bike. He would fuss over me for hours. Now my throat was slit open, and he was calling me selfish. I turned my gaze to my brother, Sam. He held a thick stack of cash in his hands, his expression unreadable. He glanced at my closed door. His lips moved as if to say something, but in the end, he just looked down and continued counting the money. Grace is right, though. Sis's temper. She really needs to work on it. My heart, or the ghost of it, clenched violently, even though it no longer beat. The phantom pain made me curl into myself. So this is what you all think. That, even in death, I'm just throwing a tantrum. Time in the... That's a wrap, my father grunted, stretching his back. Sam, put this in the safe. Grace, you look exhausted. Go rest. We have the tea ceremony. What about Annie? Grace asked again, her voice softer this time, wavering. Should I just knock? Leave her, my mother snapped, turning. They dispersed. I watched their retreating backs. I wanted to follow Sam, to S. The house fell silent. I floated back, through my bedroom. I sat cross-legged in the air next to my corpse. It was strange to look at myself. I looked peaceful. My eyes were half open, glazed over, staring at a spot. You did it, I whispered to the empty shell. You finally listened. I waited. I waited for the sunrise. I waited for the inevitable collision of their perfect world with the reality I had created. It was 8 a.m. Sunlight, cruel and bright. It wasn't my mother who found me. It was Grace. She knocked softly. Annie, I know you're upset, but I brought you some breakfast. Mama. Silence. Annie. The doorknob turned. My mother had removed the lock years ago to prevent exactly this scenario, yet she had been too angry last night to check. The iron. Grace pushed the door open. She held a tray with a steaming bowl. She took one step inside. She saw the dark stain first. It looked like spill. The tray didn't fall. She set it down on the dresser with eerie slowness, as if her brain refused to process the data. She turned around, walked into. It wasn't a movie scream. It was a guttural, animalistic sound, a tearing of vocal cords.
Thunk.
I heard running footsteps. Heavy thuds. My bee. Don't look, she sobbed, collapsing against the wall, pointing a trembling finger into my room. Don't go. But he did. Sam stopped at the threshold. His face, usually so composed, so handsome, contorted. All the blood drained from his skin, leaving him as pale as I was. He made. Then came my mother. She was wearing her silk robe, her face masked in a moisturizing sheet. What is all this noise? I told you to. She pushed past Sam. She looked into the room. The sheet mask peeled off her face as she gasped, fluttering to the floor like a dead skin. I floated closer, right up to. But I didn't see love. I saw terror. Not for me. No, she whispered, shaking her head.
No, no, no.
The wedding. The relatives. The neighbors. She rushed into the room, not to hold me, but to grab the knife.
Mom.
What are you doing? Sam screamed, finally snapping out of his trance. He rushed forward and grabbed her shoulders.
The
crime scene? My mother spun around, wild-eyed. She held the fruit knife, the knife she had given me, by the blade cut. Look at her throat, Mom. Sam roared, tears finally spilling over. She didn't fall. She slit her throat. With a knife asterisk you gave her. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Grace, still in the hallway, looked up. Her eyes were wide, horrified. You gave her the knife? My M.O. I didn't mean, she stammered. Then, her face hardened. The mask returned, not of silk, but of stone. She did this to punish me. Even in deed. I laughed. A soundless, hollow rasp. You still win, Mom. Even now, you make it about you. The police did come. Sam called them, despite my mother's shrieking protests. The house became a flurry of blue lights and static radios. I.W. My father sat on the sofa, chain-smoking. He hadn't said a word since he saw the body. He just drank whiskey from a teacup. An officer was interviewee. Mrs. Lou, did your daughter have a history of suicidal ideation? Yes, my mother said, dabbing her dry eyes with a tissue. Severe depression. We tried everything. Doctors, medication, therapy. We watched her 24/7. We welded the windows. And the weapon? The officer asked, holding up an evidence bee.
Ilindi.
My mother sniffled. I don't know, she lied, her voice trembling with practiced fragility. I must have left it out on the fruit platter by mistake during the wedding chaos. There were so many guests. I turned my back for 1 second, just 1 second, and she must have taken it. She looked. The officer nodded sympathetically. It was a chaotic duh. I screamed. I screamed until the air shimmered around me. Liar. You put it in my hand. You told me to die. But nobody heard. In the doorway, Grace stood. I gave it to her. I wanted to see if she had the guts. Grace looked at Sam. Sam was staring at the floor, defeated. He knew too. He had heard. But he said nothing. He let his mouth. They held a closed casket funeral 3 days later. It was a rush to Phi. So young. The aunties clucked. But maybe. I stood by my own coffin. It was cheap wood. They hadn't bought a plot. They were crematin. I returned to the house with them. I couldn't leave. My rage was a tether, an anchor chaining me to the drywall and the carpet.
T.
My mother scrubbed my room. She hired professional cleaners to remove the blood from the floor, but the stain on the subfloor remained. But nobody could sleep in there. The first night Grace's mother stayed, she woke up screaming at 3 a.m. She said the room felt like a freezer. She said she felt wet, sticky fingers too. My mother dismissed it. Drafts, she said.
But it wasn't drafts.
It was me. I spent my days following my mother. When she looked in the mirror, I stood just behind her left shoulder. I couldn't reflect in the glass, but I could affect her perception. She started adding more make. I sat on my father's chest while he slept. He started having nightmares. He would. But Sam was the one who suffered the most. He didn't go on his honeymoon. He claimed he had work, but he spent his days in his old study, staring at a photo of us from when we were kids, before the Deborah. One night, 2 weeks after the funeral, Sam was alone in the kitchen. He was drunk. I'm sorry, Annie, he whispered.
Immaterialisti.
I knocked a glass off the drying rack. It shattered. Sam jerked his head up. Annie? He looked right at where I was standing. The air between us shimmered. I know. He laughed bitterly. A dinner party. With you in an urn in the basement. Grace walked in. She looked tea. Sam, she said softly. We need to talk. Not now, Grace. Yes, now. She placed a hand on the counter. I found something. In the drawers. She pulled a crumpled, singed piece of paper from her pocket. It was a page from my journal. The last page. I had written it moments before I died, while I was sitting on the floor. Mom gave me the knife. She said to cut right here. She said I was a black cloud.
She's right.
I'm setting you all free. Sam, be happy. Dad, save your money.
Mom, you win.
Sam took the paper. His hands shook as he read my scrawl. She tried to burn this? Sam's voice was a low growl.
I
know, Sam whispered.
No, Sam.
You don't understand. Grace's voice was firm. If we stay, we. The dinner party was a grotesque display of normalcy. My mother had invited 20p. I hovered near the ceiling. The energy My mother stood at the head of the table, raising a toast. To family. Put the glass down, Mom, Sam said. The room went quiet. Sam remained seated, staring at his plate.
Sam.
My MOT. Sam stood up. He looked tired, but his eyes were burning with a fire I hadn't seen in why. Did you read this before you tried to burn it? He asked. My mother paled. I don't. Annie wrote it, Sam said, his voice rising. Right before she used the knife. The guests shifted uncomfortably. My father stared into his wine glass. She was crazy. My mother shrieked, slamming her. You didn't watch her to keep her safe, Grace spoke. Get out. My mother screamed. She grabbed a steak knife from the table. The same motion, the same rage as that night. Get out of my house. We're going, Sam said calmly. We're leaving tonight. And we aren't Comey. He looked at my father. Dad, are you coming? My father looked at my mother, panting with rage, holding the can. He stood up. You. My mother gasped. You're leaving me? For her? For the dead girl? She's dead because of us, my father said, his voice breaking. Sam, wait for me. My mother stood alone at the head of. Fine, she screamed at the closing door. Go. I don't need any of you. I'm free. I'm finally free of. She turned to the empty room. I'm happy. She yelled at the walls. Do you hear me? I'm happy.
Tage.
I descended from the ceiling. I materialized fully just for a second, not as the bloody corpse. I stood at the other end of the table. She froze. Annie, she whispered. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I just looked at her with dull, tired eyes. I looked at her with the exhaustion of 1,000 lifetimes. Then I smiled. A small, sad smile. You're alone, Mom. Just like you always made me feel. I pointed to the welded windows. Now you're the one in the cage. I didn't stay to watch her descend into madness. I didn't need to. The silence of.
I
I saw Sam's car pulling out of the driveway. Grace was driving. Sam was in the passenger seat, crying openly. My father was in the back, looking out the window at the house one last time. They were. I felt the tether snap. The heavy weight in M. I looked up. The sky wasn't black. It was a deep. Goodbye, Sam. I whispered to the wind. Live for me. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't see darkness. I saw light. And then I was gone.